Just caught 3 trout. The mountain air's good for the soul, Ava's text read. Ethan Ross stared at the screen of his phone, the image of a distant lake and a tent nestled among trees looking peaceful, almost believable. He smiled faintly, typed back, "Proud of you, babe, enjoy the quiet," and hit send. But before he could put the phone down, his office door swung open. His sister Michelle stormed in, holding her phone. "Ethan, you need to see this. Now." She turned the screen toward him. There, in crisp digital clarity, was Ava, wearing a crimson bikini, cocktail in hand, wrapped around a shirtless young man Ethan recognized instantly. Connor Blake, her intern. The image was tagged, "Tulum escape, no more hiding," posted just 2 minutes ago. Ethan's jaw tensed. His lungs forgot how to breathe. "Tulum? She said she was off-grid. No signal. Hiking," Michelle whispered. "She's not even trying to hide it." The edges of Ethan's vision dimmed as his pulse thundered in his ears. Another photo appeared. A candlelit dinner, her lips close to Connor's ear, captioned, "Real love doesn't need to explain itself." He felt nothing at first, just a sharp, clinical silence in his chest. Then came the heat. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was calculated. And the woman he had trusted with his life had turned out to be the one slicing it apart in real time. Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. He turned to his laptop, opened their joint account, and began typing. He wasn't about to scream. He wasn't going to cry. Ava had no idea that while she was sipping cocktails in paradise, she had just handed him every tool he needed to dismantle her entire world. The game had just begun. 10 years earlier, Ethan Ross had met Ava at a university leadership seminar in Chapel Hill. She was fiery, bright-eyed, full of ambition, already plotting a career in branding and media. Ethan, quieter by nature, was studying finance and had a talent for spotting patterns. Numbers, behavior, systems. They'd clicked instantly. Over late-night coffees and weekend hikes, their connection deepened. She loved that he listened more than he spoke. He admired how fearlessly she chased dreams. After graduation, they moved to Charleston together. Ava climbed fast in the corporate world, eventually becoming senior director of strategy at a rising marketing firm. Ethan, always steady, built a successful career in private financial consulting, helping others grow their money, though he rarely talked about his own. Ava used to call him her anchor, saying he made her feel safe. And Ethan believed in her, believed in their partnership. When she suggested delaying kids to focus on her career, he agreed. When she asked for help building her brand, he created her business model, quietly designing the very pitch that would land her biggest clients. He never needed applause, only loyalty. But in recent months, something had shifted. She was working later, traveling more. Her new wellness routine involved solo retreats. Her phone, once left on the counter during dinner, now never left her side. She changed her passwords. She stopped laughing at his dry jokes. And Ethan, who tracked global market trends for a living, had begun to see a different kind of pattern. He'd brought it up once. "Are we okay?" he asked her softly one night. She smiled and kissed his forehead. "Just tired," she whispered. "You worry too much." And he'd believed her. Because that's who he was. The steady one. The trusting one. The man who loved his wife enough to stay blind until her beachside cocktail photos ripped the blindfold clean off. Now, sitting alone in his office, Ethan saw the last 10 years for what they really were. A partnership where one person held the wheel, and the other just kept the boat from sinking. That was about to change. Ethan closed the image of Ava and Connor on the beach and opened his banking app with a sense of grim precision. This wasn't about jealousy anymore. It was about truth. The joint account showed the usual activity: groceries, utility bills, their mortgage on the Charleston townhouse. But something stood out. A series of transfers, each just below the reporting threshold, wired out over the past 7 months. One to an account labeled New Horizon Holdings, another to Sundial Group, LLC. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he pulled transaction histories. 26 transfers, everyone marked as marketing consulting expenses. Total, $121,400, 0 cents. His breath slowed. She wasn't just cheating. She was hiding money. Digging deeper, he found charges tied to a boutique resort in Tulum weeks before the alleged hiking trip, designer clothing stores in Miami, a $4,200 0 cents dinner charge in New York from a night she claimed to be visiting her mother in Raleigh. Ethan rubbed his temples, feeling the chilling shift from personal betrayal to premeditated fraud. She wasn't preparing to leave him. She was already gone. This was just the exit strategy. He called the customer service number listed on one of the offshore transfers. "I'm inquiring about a payment to Sundial Group," he said calmly. The woman on the other end asked for verification. He gave it. "I'm sorry," she said after a pause. "That account belongs to A. Ross. Do you have joint authorization?" He did not. Ethan leaned back in his chair, the room spinning gently around him. Ava had created shell accounts, probably under a single account LLC, and slowly drained their shared funds under the guise of business development. He thought about the marketing firm where she worked, the clients she dazzled, the bonuses she bragged about. None of it had ever felt off until now. The financial lies cut deeper than the affair. This wasn't a woman falling out of love. This was a woman staging a clean escape, building a secret war chest while keeping Ethan smiling across the dinner table. She'd underestimated him. He wasn't just a finance guy. He was a strategist. And now the numbers would bring her down. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Instead, he sat in the soft glow of his home office, surrounded by spreadsheets, screenshots, and legal pads scribbled with notes. Every financial transaction Ava had hidden was now part of a timeline. Carefully ordered, categorized, and damning. At 6:14 a.m., he texted his sister. "He'd just been through it. Thanks, but no thank you. Sleep like a bumper on it. Skip toot for you." I knew his reply 2 days later, from her eyes. When she saw the documents laid out across the dining table, her jaw tightened. "You weren't kidding," she murmured, flipping through the evidence. "This is bad." "She's not just cheating," Ethan said quietly. "She's laundering our money." Michelle, a seasoned paralegal for a family law firm, immediately went into action mode. They started documenting everything. Transactions that couldn't be traced, transactions invitations. They even pulled up screenshots of Ava's and Connor's Instagram stories that aligned with financial activity. Ethan sat back at one point, running a hand through his hair. This isn't just an affair, it's a blueprint. Then he remembered someone. Tessa Monroe, Ava's old roommate from before their marriage. Tessa had once warned Ethan not to ignore red flags, back when Ava got a little too close with a previous boss. He hadn't listened. Now, with nothing left to lose, he found her number and made the call. "Tessa, it's Ethan. I know it's been a while, but I need to ask you something. Did Ava ever pull anything like this before?" There was a long pause, then Tessa exhaled. "I was wondering how long it would take before someone found out." "She did this to someone else, Ethan. Same pattern. Charm, control, drain." The line went silent. Ethan stood frozen. He wasn't just uncovering a betrayal. He was stepping into the middle of a con that had likely played out more than once. Ava wasn't just reckless. She was rehearsed. And now, she'd finally picked the wrong man to try it on. Tessa didn't hold back. Over the phone, her voice was steady but heavy, like someone unburdening a truth long buried. "It was back when Ava was at Beckett and Rowe," she began. "There was a senior partner, Jason Drell. Ava got close, started traveling with him for brand launches. Same kind of setup. Weekend retreats, sudden spending sprees. Then, poof. He lost everything in a lawsuit and she jumped ship. So senior partner turns terminal. 15 things to say." Ethan jotted everything down, asking detailed questions. "Did anyone ever confront her?" he asked. "Jason did, once. But she flipped it, said he tried to coerce her. She came out clean. He lost his job and reputation." As Tessa described more, a sickening clarity set in. Ava and Connor weren't just having an affair. They were executing a structured financial con. Ava seduced upward, Connor manipulated downward. Together, they built a pattern. Identify wealthy or influential targets, create emotional leverage, siphon resources slowly, then vanish. The charm wasn't coincidence, it was calculated psychology. Ava had done this before. Connor, likely handpicked for his naivety and looks, was her accomplice. Ava was the brains, Connor the distraction. Ethan recorded the conversation, with Tessa's consent, and sent the file to Michelle. "We need to forward this to someone who understands what it means legally," he said. Michelle already had someone in mind, a white-collar crime attorney in Charleston she'd worked with before. By midday, they were sitting in a sleek downtown office, laying out the documents, transfers, and now the recorded testimony. The attorney's verdict was swift. This isn't adultery. This is fraud, conspiracy, and possibly financial exploitation. And if Connor's involved, that's aiding and abetting. Ethan stared out the window of the office, the harbor in the distance glittering under a pale sky. Ava wasn't just a cheating spouse, she was a serial predator, using marriage as a smokescreen. And now, with evidence of a repeat offense and a second accomplice, Ethan realized something deeper. This wasn't personal anymore. It was criminal. And he was going to make sure the right people knew it. By the end of the week, Ethan had built a portfolio that looked less like a jilted husband's revenge and more like a prosecutor's exhibit binder. With Michelle and their attorney, they submitted a formal complaint to the FBI's White-Collar Crimes Division. Within 48 hours, Agent Melissa Tran contacted Ethan directly. "I reviewed the packet," she said, voice calm but intrigued. "You've done more legwork than some of our own analysts. We're officially opening an investigation." Agent Tran explained that Ava's offshore transfers, shell accounts, and coordination with Connor pointed to structured fraud and possibly racketeering. "This isn't a one-time thing, this is organized," she said. And she got sloppy. Ethan felt no triumph, only a cold clarity. The woman he once trusted with his passwords, his heart, his future, had weaponized all of it against him. But now, she'd underestimated the wrong man. Working with Agent Tran, he filed a request to freeze the joint accounts, halt Ava's access to the townhouse deed, and initiate a forensic audit of all financial assets under her marketing firm. They used her own signature on old corporate filings to prove fraudulent control. Simultaneously, Ethan's attorney delivered a confidential file to Derek Lane, Ava's CEO. Inside, photos, financial documents, and Tessa's recorded statement. Within hours, Ava's login credentials were revoked, her company phone suspended. Lane called Ethan personally. "We're conducting an emergency board review, and we're grateful you came forward." As Ava sipped from a coconut on a balcony in Tulum, believing her exit plan was complete, her professional world was already crumbling behind her. She didn't know that her accounts had been frozen, her emails monitored, or that the SEC had been notified about suspicious activity linked to her consulting LLC. Ethan sat in his kitchen that evening, tea cooling beside him, watching the digital dominoes fall. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't even angry anymore. He was simply thorough. Ava thought she'd planned the perfect escape. What she didn't realize was that Ethan Ross was already 5 moves ahead. And this wasn't just about love lost. It was about a criminal empire collapsing under her own signature. Ava's next Instagram post came like clockwork, her favorite time to show off. A photo from a rooftop infinity pool in Tulum, her legs stretched out on a lounger, Connor beside her sipping champagne. The caption read, "No more hiding, just sunshine and real love, new beginnings." What she didn't know was that her caption had just become Exhibit A in her downfall. Ethan forwarded the post directly to Agent Tran and to Derek Lane at Ava's company. Within hours, the board convened in an emergency session. Her social media posts, combined with the financial data, confirmed her relationship with a subordinate a clear violation of company policy and her use of corporate accounts for personal gain. Her access to company servers was shut down. The internal PR team drafted a containment statement. "Your wife just gave us everything we needed on a silver platter," Lane told Ethan. And Connor's name is now on HR's watch list too. That evening, Ava and Connor arrived at the airport in Cancun, luggage tagged for Spain. What they didn't expect was a flagged passport alert. As they approached the gate, airport officials intercepted them. The Mexican Financial Task Force, alerted by the FBI, had issued a hold based on potential fraud charges involving cross-border wire transfers. Connor panicked. Ava tried to talk her way through it. Neither succeeded. The fantasy had collapsed. Meanwhile, Ethan sat at his desk, watching a blinking cursor in an empty document, one he would soon fill with a victim statement. The notification buzzed, subjects detained, awaiting further instruction. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. While Ava chased real love, she left a trail of digital breadcrumbs, and Ethan had simply followed the map she drew herself. With hashtags, lies, and just enough arrogance to believe she'd never get caught. 3 days after the airport detention, Ava's corporate email account was terminated. Her job was gone. Her reputation, once curated with hashtags and polished pitches, was shredded by internal memos and leaked financial audits. Connor had been deported quietly, his work visa revoked. Ava was being held pending extradition, and the FBI had officially pressed charges for wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Ethan received the updates with a quiet, steady demeanor. No smugness, just closure. Derek Lane, Ava's former CEO, called Ethan personally. "I want to apologize for everything she did, on behalf of the company and honestly, as a man. We should have caught it sooner." He offered Ethan a contract, a consulting role to help audit and redesign the firm's internal security protocols. Ethan hesitated only a moment before agreeing. "Happy to help clean up the mess," he said. "It's what I do." Ava sent one final message through her attorney, a determined letter asking for clarity, saying she never meant to hurt Ethan. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. Her apologies came only after the fantasy crumbled. Instead, Ethan met with Michelle over breakfast at a quiet cafe on King Street. She slid a newspaper across the table. Local couple accused in $300 0 K fraud scheme. Intern romance ends in scandal. He glanced at it, then pushed it aside. "Not bad for a boring finance guy," he joked. She grinned. "You didn't just survive, Ethan. You dismantled her whole illusion." That night, he stood on his back porch, drink in hand, looking out at the Charleston skyline. Not as a victim, not as a betrayed husband, but as a man who took back control, protected what mattered, and let the rest burn. Ava had tried to bury him beneath lies. Instead, he rose above them. 6 months later, the name Rosgard had begun circulating through Charleston's corporate circles. What started as Ethan's personal mission to expose betrayal had evolved into a full-fledged private consulting firm specializing in financial fraud detection and internal audits. Clients weren't just curious, they were eager. His story had become a quiet legend, the financial consultant who turned his wife's scandal into a service that now protected others from similar destruction. He never advertised what happened with Ava, but everyone knew, and that was enough. Michelle joined him full-time as operations director, and together they built a reputation for discretion, clarity, and sharp strategy. Ethan didn't chase revenge anymore. He built resilience. One of his first major contracts, Ava's former firm, who asked Rosgard to audit all legacy accounts and build a new fraud monitoring system. Ethan had smiled at the request. "Send the paperwork," he'd said simply. Ava's name didn't need to be mentioned. Her failure had become his foundation. In the quiet of his new office, with a view of the harbor, Ethan hung just one item on the wall, a framed printout of a quote he'd once scribbled during the worst night of it all. "They broke your trust, so you built a fortress." He no longer checked Ava's case updates. She'd taken a plea deal. Connor had disappeared from social media. The noise was gone. What remained was Ethan's voice, calm, capable, and finally clear. One afternoon, while speaking at a local business leadership summit, he closed with a message that silenced the room. "People often ask me how to spot fraud, but the real question is, how long are you willing to ignore what you already know?" Trust your instincts. They don't lie. People do. The applause was thunderous, and Ethan Ross smiled, not as a man broken by betrayal, but as one rebuilt by it. Ethan sat on the pier one quiet morning, the Charleston breeze tugging gently at his sleeves as he sipped his coffee and watched the sun lift above the water. The storm had passed. Not just the legal chaos, but the emotional one. The disbelief, the betrayal, the rage. All of it had settled into something firmer now. Understanding. Ava hadn't just broken their marriage, she had revealed its hollowness. And in doing so, she handed Ethan the greatest gift of all. Clarity. He thought about the man he used to be. Measured, cautious, always giving others the benefit of the doubt. And while he didn't regret being kind, he had learned to pair kindness with vigilance. Love, he now knew, wasn't enough without respect. And trust? That had to be earned, not assumed. People had asked him if he ever wished it hadn't happened, and his answers surprised even himself. No. Because Ava's betrayal taught him something he never would have learned otherwise. He was stronger than he ever imagined, not because he got even, but because he reclaimed his worth, his future, and his voice. And sometimes, Ethan realized, the life you rebuild is far better than the one you were trying so hard to save. Ethan Ross's story is not just about betrayal. It's about the quiet power of reclaiming control when everything you trusted falls apart. Through his journey, we learn that devastation can often be the first spark of transformation. Ava didn't just cheat. She dismantled years of trust, drained finances, and treated love like a weapon. But Ethan didn't let the betrayal define him. He studied the truth, acted with strategy, and turned pain into purpose. The core lesson is this: when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Trust is sacred, and once broken, it demands evidence before it can be rebuilt, if ever. Ethan reminds us that love should never come at the cost of self-respect, and silence in the face of deceit is not loyalty. It's surrender. But more than anything, Ethan's story is about resilience, about not just surviving betrayal, but using it to rise. He teaches us that it's okay to walk away from something that once felt unbreakable. Because what you build after the storm, when it's rooted in truth, strength, and self-worth, is far more powerful than anything you lost. Sometimes, the end of what you thought was forever is the beginning of who you were always meant to be.